Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Bill Angel is with us from OSU Lima. I'm very fascinated by this. Okay, so Jeff Jacoby, he writes in the Boston Globe, he wants an expansion of the House of Representatives because he says that's the way it was in the 18 and 1900s, and we got to a certain point, I think the 1920 census, and we just stopped.
Yeah.
That's his point, right?
That's right. I mean, well, last time we increased the number of representatives, the Constitution allows, it actually recommends, every 10 years after every census, Congress reappropriated seats and re-enumerate the seats is what they use. And so you find that when we get to 1910, however, we stop at 435. And 1920 census was a crucial census because that was a census in which the United States became an urban country. There were more people living in urban places than in rural places. And the congressmen and House members from rural states got kind of freaked out by that prospect. And also you had the Red Scare and foreigners coming in and radicalization, all that occurred in the early 1920s, late 1900s. And so you find that there was a real move to kind of freeze it at 435 in 1929, just before the 1930 census came out.
Right. I was a little skeptical at first, but as you mentioned, the average representative is representing 760,000 people right now.
760,000 people, and if we would go back to the 1910 standard, that would be about 200,000.
Yeah.
Which would mean Ohio, if we were to go do this, would get about 60 representatives as opposed to the 15.
Yeah, and when it comes to election time, too, there would be less chance of you being able to buy your way into the House of Representatives.
Yeah, because you have to do retail-style politics.
Yeah.
So there was no reason to put your face on the media and do a lot of television and radio. You could do some of that, but you don't need to do as much of it.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to be as beholden to fundraisers and people who have big money and all the dark money that comes into campaigns would pretty much be a thing of the past.
Yeah, we were just talking about, think about the social media campaigns. There were people, as you said, you would still want to go door to door and the old grassroots, that kind of stuff, but you could basically do your campaign social media and still be very effective.
It could be social media. You could also do a lot of the retail politics, door-to-door campaigns, flyouts and leaflets, people, going around door-to-door and talking to people to vote for so-and-so. It would also give incumbents less of an advantage than they have now. It would make easier to challenge somebody. And you have primaries. You'd have primaries that are really competitive. So there would be a lot of things to go for. And the other thing that would happen is the Electoral College would not choose a president who did not receive the popular vote. It would make it virtually impossible for a president to not win the popular vote and become president of the United States.
We talked about gerrymandering too. Your congressional districts wouldn't look like a Rorschach test now. They would be a little more.
They'd be small. That was the thing the recent apportionment committee said. They're all compact. Well, yeah, they're compact, but they're also skewed in the Republican direction.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to have that kind of slice and dice and pack and stack campaign districts like you can now. So the apportionment battles would be a thing of the past.
Well, in Jacoby Talks, he answers a question that I came in. I said I was a little skeptical of this idea because I thought, okay, he said you could get up to 1,500 people if you did it the way we did back then. And I thought exponentially that just increases the problems we have with the current group. But he kind of, dispels that myth.
Because they would be more responsible to the people who elect them.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that people have with the House of Representatives and the Senate too, is these guys get elected, they don't seem to be responsible to the people who elect them, they're responsible to the people, who shell out the money.
Sure.
So there is that issue, I think, would make them have to be more in touch with their constituents, and it would make a better and more functional Congress.
And more influence of third parties too. As you mentioned too, we were talking just the nuts and bolts of it. You might have to meet in an arena, but social media today and Zooming, you probably wouldn't have to do anything.
You look at C-SPAN, the House is hardly ever filled.
Right.
And so it's only filled in those big occasions like State of the Union addresses.
Right.
And so you could basically have a lottery to see who gets to sit in the arena.
Yeah.
Or you could, if you really wanted to, I suppose you could rent one of the place where the Capitals play, or one of the big arenas in downtown D.C. And have it there. So if they really wanted to, but I think that's probably not it's a bit smaller issue.
Yeah, it's an interesting premise. I can check that out in the Boston Globe. Thank you so much for telling us about it. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
People can send me an email, and I'll gladly send them.
Send it along. Okay, excellent. Don't go away. Medical news coming up next on Noon Edition.